thank you so much. Oh, it's nice to see repeat business. Are you the Halls from Yellow Hill?
Yes.
I thought so. I know your son Dave, right? And
Yes.
you have grandchildren now, and a daughter-in-law, and probably more that I don't know about. But thank you all for coming. I'm a Biglerville girl. I'm from Upper Adams, and I was born in Gettysburg. And when I was a little girl, my dad would load us in the station wagon on Sundays and take us on Sunday drives. Anybody remember those days? And where did we end up at the end of the Sunday drive?
Disco things.
Oh, well, we went to Grandma's house for lumpy mashed potatoes, and that's where I saw my cousins and had a good time. But sometimes my dad would take us to this monument of this lady named Mary Jemison and tell me about her, and it baffled me. I didn't really understand this story, or why this survivor from the French and Indian War was important in American history. I couldn't really understand her story. You know, I was from the cowboys and Indian days, the good guys, the bad guys, and Native Americans were usually depicted in a very negative way. And I just like, why would she live her whole life with Native Americans when she could come back and be a colonist? So we're going to talk about Mary Jemison's story. Now I'm going to be quoting this book, and I have it with me. Mary Jemison was interviewed late in her years in New York by a doctor there named James Seaver. And it's said that he may have embellished her account a bit. And there are some things in the account that I'll tell you may be up for some dispute. So I'm going to begin my program on Mary Jemison. So again, I will be quoting this. So this is a must read. This is as close as you're going to get to her words. So even though Seaver may have added a little of his own opinion, it's as close as you're going to get to hearing her story. Mary Jemison, a French and Indian War survivor. So it was just interesting to me to learn too about this period of history. So we're going to talk about the first war in what became America, not the Revolution. The French and Indian War. Who was fighting who? It was over the land here, the Ohio River Valley, and it was a fight between the French and the British. And Native Americans were caught up in it, and so were the colonists that were here. Mary Jemison's family lived in this area, not far from here at all. And they were squatters. They did not own the land that they were in. They did not own the house that they left. So I'm going to tell you her story now. So my dad would load us into the station wagon, and we drive up through the Narrows, through the Buchanan Valley, once called the Pleasant Valley, to the St. Ignatius Loyola Catholic Church. You've all seen her monument there? Great. Okay, so I thought she was so beautiful and peaceful there. I just couldn't understand all this depiction of savagery of Native Americans or understand the story. So she was offered times after her capture that she could have come back, and she chose to not do it. In reading her story, I understand why this child of Irish immigrants born during the ocean crossing. How fun to have a baby. Okay, and I've said this the other day, there's a thin line between brave and stupid. She got on a ship pregnant, knowing I'm going to give birth out there with whoever. Wow, she was brave. I'm saying she was brave. She was with her husband, she had small children, and this is what she did. So Mary was born on the ocean crossing. So what is her nationality? It is the port where she was from. She left Ireland, she's Irish. She landed in the Philadelphia area, but she is Irish because it's your port where you left. So she said that her family were Scotch-Irish. Tim Smith just talked about this, that it's mostly Scots, people from Scotland that were down into Ireland and came here. So they may be more Scottish than Irish. So depending on where they had come from. So it's over 250 years. How many of you were at our celebration that we had here in 2008? You all missed that. Wow, well, it was crazy fun. We had a great committee, and we packed the St. Ignatius Loyola Catholic Church and the Buchanan Valley Fire Company hall filled with speakers and people. It was great. It was said that, your personality is formed in the first 2 years of your life. And Mary Jemison was in this area at that time. She learned to read here. They worshiped here. Her family was part of who we are. Mary's father, Thomas Jemison, was a constable here. We found his name planting roads here. So we'll talk about one thing in the book. Now, you see how her name is spelled? Jemison, Jemison. When they were here in this county, it was Jameson, like the whiskey. Jameson, like the whiskey. So we'll say that this is the 18th century Pennsylvania, and that's 19th century New York. She was Jemison when she was here in PA. She was captured in April of 1758, interviewed later in her years, and Seaver changed her name to Jemison. This is supposedly photography of her. You want to see this a little closer? It's pretty interesting. And when was, so she died 1824. This is like a glass plate before daguerreotypes. But that is an image of her. And she's been depicted by artists. And I'll share some of that artwork with you. And I'll have these afterwards. If you want to snap pictures of anything that I have, I'll be happy to share them with you. So at the celebration, we found her relatives in New York and brought them here. Peter Jemison. It was really thrilling. Peter Jemison was one of them, and Alan Jemison. And Alan says to me, "Would you like to meet Mary?" And I went, "Well, of course I would." Well, here she is. This is my wife, Mary. You're so funny. But truly, I'm just mystified by this woman and her amazing life. So let's get going. So try to help you understand it. So she sat down in November of 1823 and gave her life story to him. It said her life would be as storm-tossed as the Atlantic upon which she was born. Her life would be as storm-tossed as the Atlantic upon which she was born. So she sat down with him. She was about 80 years old. She'd been living in the Native American culture for 65 years. So she was captured in April of 1758 when she was about 15 years old. And she was taken away from here and lived her whole life with them. So at the time, Seaver described her in this way. She possessed an uncommon share of hospitality. Her friendship was well worth courting and preserving. Her house was the stranger's home. From her table, the hungry were refreshed. In all her actions, he discovered a natural goodness of heart. He described her in this way. Her stature was very short. She stood tolerably erect with her head bent forward, apparently from carrying heavy burdens. Her complexion was white, her eyes blue, naturally brilliant and sparkling. Her sight was quite dim, her cheekbones high, her teeth were sound and good. Her hair, now gray, had been chestnut brown. She wore it in a bunch tied behind. She said she never wore a hat on her head nor a comb in her hair. She spoke English plainly and directly with a little bit of the Irish emphasis. She took a quick step a number of times during the interview. Tears trickled down her grief-worn cheeks. She provides completely for herself, cooking, planting, tending corn, doing laborious service. She's always busy, dressed in Indian fashion, in a shirt, short gown, petticoat, stockings, and moccasin. So again, the correction there. Now, one other thing in the book that she says, she was captured in 1755. She was captured in 1758. And how do we know? There was a newspaper at the time that accounted it. And here it is, the Pennsylvania Gazette. So I'm going to share this with you. It said, 3 Indians were seen this day by 2 boys near Thomas Jemison's at the head of Marsh Creek, upon which gave alarm when 6 men went to said Jemison's house and found there Robert Buck killed and scalped, also a horse killed that belonged to William Mann, a soldier at Carlisle. Thomas Jemison, his wife, and 5 or 6 children are all missing. This has thrown the country into confusion. So that's what people read about, probably not right away, till it got printed, distributed. It took a while. So captured near the Marsh Creek. So when the family came to Philadelphia,
What Indian tribe is it?
she was captured by the Shawnee and Frenchmen and then traded to the Seneca. Her family is of Seneca descent, and Peter Gerald Jemison is a curator of a Seneca museum in New York. And if you Google him, you can go up and talk to him just like I did. And there was a nice hiking trail at the museum in which he worked, because I remember making a day of it. That's the description of her. So that name, Jameson. So again, just like it was spelled. So Jane Irwin was her mother's name, and she marries Thomas Jemison. And so Jane and Thomason, with their 2 sons, John and Thomas, and daughter Betsy, boarded a ship in 1743. Jane was with child upon the journey. On the ocean crossing, Mary was born. Not a fun place for me to have a baby. No, thank you. So the Jemison family arrived in America near Philadelphia. Thomas, acquainted with agriculture, wanted to get into the countryside. So they left that area and settled in what is present-day Adams County, though before this we were York County, and before that we were Lancaster County. This was Lancaster County when she was captured. And they became part of the Marsh Creek settlement. So they lived somewhere down near the Marsh Creek. And now we're up here, and we're at the headwaters of the Conewago is where she was taken. So the family lived down somewhere in the Gettysburg area, down near the Marsh Creek, and then moved up after a few years, and that's where Mary was captured, was up in the Buchanan Valley. And I'll give you a location, Bottom Road. Anybody of you know where Bottom Road is? It connects up Bottom Road. There is a little tributary water. It's just a little thing called Sharpie's Run, but that tells us near the area where her family was captured, that little tributary of water. So the family came here. Now, Mary tells Seaver that her parents possessed wealth and honorable stations under the government of the country they had left. Thomas and Jane Jemison were born in either Scotland or Ireland, but they were brought up in Ireland. Of their happiness, she said, I often heard them speak. Now I'm reading from the book. I yet retain of their mildness and perfect agreement in the government of their children, together with their mutual attention to our common wants, renders it a fact in my mind, they were ornaments to the married state, and examples of connubial love worthy of imitation. They attended religious instruction. They were strict observers of religious duty. They worshiped morning and evening. They thought they'd find a home here under the mild and temperate government of William Penn. They thought without fear they might worship God. And Mary says this, in the course of the voyage I was born, except my birth, nothing remarkable happened upon the voyage. We landed safely in Philadelphia. My father, fond of rural life, soon left the city and removed his family to the frontier settlements of Pennsylvania, to a tract of excellent land lying on the Marsh Creek. Health presided on every countenance, face. Health presided on every countenance. I'm sorry, I just lost my page. Oh, it's such a good part. I don't want you to miss it. Health presided on every countenance, and vigor and strength characterized every exertion. Our mansion was a little paradise. I think that's adorable. They cleared land for a large farm, lived there 7 or 8 years. Mother Jane had 2 more sons, Matthew and Robert. Thomas Jemison left that farm and moved to the area we know today as Buchanan Valley. In the 1750s, tensions between the French and British over the land here in North America had elevated. What we know today as the French and Indian War was actually a war between the French and the British. Native Americans were caught in the turmoil. Some of them decided to join the fight. The day before the raid at Mary's house, when they were captured, Mary went to a neighbor's house to retrieve a horse. Coming back, she had a strange encounter. She said she saw what appeared to be a big white sheet spread in front of her, and she couldn't escape it, and they found her lifeless on the ground. So they brought her inside and restored her to health. At daybreak, she woke up, and they thought that this was a forerunner of the upcoming catastrophe. The next day, she returned with that horse, and she describes the raid. I'll find one thing for you. Here we go. In this way. And this is from the book. This is what she says happened at their home the morning of the raid. Our family, as usual, was busily employed about their common business. Father was shaving an axe helve at the side of the house. Mother was making preparations for breakfast. My 2 eldest brothers were at work near the barn. The little ones, myself and the woman with her 3 children, were in the house. Breakfast was not yet ready when we were alarmed by the discharge of a number of guns that seemed to be near. My mother and the woman before mentioned almost fainted at the report, and everyone trembled with fear. On opening the door, the man and horse lay dead near the house, having just been shot by the Indians, and they first secured my father, rushed in the house and made prisoners of my mother, my 2 younger brothers, my sister, the woman and her 3 children, and myself, and then commenced plundering the house. The party that took us consisted of 4 Frenchmen and 6 Shawnee Indians. They took what they considered most valuable, consisting principally of bread, meal, and meat. Having as much provision as they could carry, they set out with their prisoners in great haste for fear of detection, and soon entered the woods. So they were captured from here. They were made to march and travel quickly. Now remember, they said their 2 brothers were in the barn. They got away. They went to live with their grandparents in Virginia. When we had this reenactment and reunion, I tried to contact the Virginia Historical Society to see if they could find these boys, and I never did. But after the celebration that we had here, I got a call from a gentleman. His name was Fred Trimbrell, and he had this southern accent. He said he was driving to Gettysburg on a bus for a deep, multiple-day seminar on the Civil War, and he saw this historical marker talking about Mary Jemison, and his mother had always told him that he was related to him. And I said, you must be from the brothers that were in the barn. But I never checked. So I met with them and showed him the slides of the big celebration that we had. So again, 2 boys in the barn that morning that she describes, they escaped this horribleness of seeing their family getting captured. So Robert Griffin did this one. I'll let you see this one. And there's some things on here some people don't like. Kind of looks like a chainsaw on that one log there. But it was that great big 2-man, is it called a bandsaw? Bucksaw. So Mary is the one right here. She looks a little older. Kind of like, is that her mother or her? But that's Mary. She's 16. She looks a little bit distraught. And they set their home on fire. They took what they could and then set the house on fire, plundering, they called it. Robert Griffin, and this is where you can see and purchase these paintings is Lord Nelson's. It used to be in Gettysburg, and now it's a frame shop, but they still carry Robert Griffin's prints right on Chambersburg Street in downtown Gettysburg. There are several, at least 2 prints that Griffin has done on Mary Jemison. This one depicts when she was captured. So the whole family is, they're grabbed and they're taken away, made to march quickly. So they were made captives by these Shawnee and Frenchmen. They were headed west immediately. They were made to move quickly all day long. They whipped the children to make them keep up. When they cried for water, they were made to drink urine. They camped at night with no shelter, no fire for fear of detection. They were fed once a day. Mary's father would not take any food the whole time of this march, totally absorbed in melancholy, probably because he could not get his family out of harm's way. At the end of the second day, they stopped at a dark and dismal swamp. Native Americans removed Mary's shoes and stockings, replaced them with moccasins. Her mother observed this and thought it was a sign that Mary would be spared. And her mother tells her this: "My dear little Mary, I fear that the time has arrived that we must be parted forever. Your life, my child, I think will be spared. But what shall happen to us? We will be tomahawked here in this lonesome place by the Indians. Oh, how can I part with you, my darling? What will become of my sweet little Mary? Oh, how can I think of your being continued in captivity without a hope of your being rescued? Oh, that death had snatched you from my embraces in your infancy. The pain of parting then would have been pleasing to what it is now, and I should have seen the end of your troubles. Alas, my dear, my heart bleeds at the thought of what awaits you. But if you leave us, remember, my child, your name, the name of your father and your mother. Be careful. Don't forget your English tongue. And if you shall have an opportunity to escape, don't try to escape. If you do, they will find you and destroy you. Don't forget, my little daughter, the prayers that I have taught you. Say them often. Be a good child, and God will bless you. May God bless you, my child, and make you comfortable and happy." Mary and another boy were taken away from the others, and later they were joined by the rest of the Frenchmen and Native Americans, but the others, her family, were not with them. That night, they pulled bloody scalps out of a bag, stretched them over hoops, and combed their hair in the neatest manner. Mary said, "The scalps, I knew, were those of my family. My mother's hair was red, and I could easily distinguish my father's and the children's." In the course of the night, she was made to understand they would not have been killed had they not been pursued. She described her feelings at the time like this: "It's impossible for anyone to form a correct idea what my feelings were at the sight of those savages whom I suppose had murdered my parents and brothers, sisters, and friends and left them in the swamp to be devoured by wild beasts. But what could I do? A poor defenseless girl without the power or means of escaping, without a home to go to, even if I could be liberated, without knowledge of the direction or distance of my former place of residence, without a living friend to whom I could fly for protection." I felt a kind of horror, anxiety, and dread that to me seemed insupportable. I durst not cry. I durst not complain. And to inquire of them the fate of my friends, even if I could have, it was beyond my ability. I couldn't speak their language, and they couldn't understand mine. My only relief was in silent, stifled sobs. The march continued. When weeds and grass were trampled, Native Americans walked behind it, used reeds to put the things back up so they couldn't detect their path. It was a difficult journey. It was April, and it was snowing, and they were cold. And Mary describes it like this: "The weather was extremely uncomfortable from the continual falling of rain and snow. At night, the snow fell fast, and the Indians built a shelter of boughs, a fire, where we rested tolerably dry through that and 2 successive nights. When I stopped and before the fire was kindled, I was so much fatigued from running and so far benumbed by the wet and cold that I expected I must fail and die before I could get warm and comfortable. The fire, however, soon restored my circulation, and after I had taken my supper, I felt that I rested well through the night." They were taken to Fort Duquesne. Oh, by the way, let me just tell you where they were murdered. If you go out Route 30, past Chambersburg, you will see a road called Gilbert Road. I'm sorry, wait, that's wrong. Gilbert Road's the second road. Oh, I just forgot it. Can anybody help me? Anybody been there to Fort McCord? It's near Fort McCord. Edenville Road. Turn right on the Edenville Road, and then at Gilbert Lane, there's a flower bed and a stone and a plaque that said Mary Jemison's family was tomahawked right here. No lie. And you can go find it today, tomorrow, when it's daylight. So the place where she was killed was marked, and I'm going to show you that in a slide. So they were taken to Fort Duquesne. Where am I at here? So uncomfortable from the rain and snow. Okay. Yep. Okay, this is when they adopted her. So they were taken to Fort Duquesne, and these Seneca women came in and checked her out, and they adopted her for a son that they had lost in battle. And then they went down the Ohio River in a canoe. And Mary describes that journey like this. This is just an incredible description. Okay, this is when she's in the fort. She said, I was left alone in the fort, deprived of my former companions and everything that was near and dear to me. Not before long, I was relieved by the appearance of two pleasant-looking squaws of the Seneca tribe. They came in, examined me for a short time, and then they went out. After a few minutes, they returned with my former masters, who gave me to them to dispose of as I pleased. The Indians by whom I was taken were a party of Shawnee that lived, when at home, a distance down along the Ohio. And the two squaws were soon ready to leave the fort, accordingly embarked, Indians in a large canoe, and the two squaws and myself, a small one that went behind them, down the Ohio. We went off, and the Indians were in the forward canoe. They took the scalps out of the bag, strung them on a pole right in front of her that was in the back of their boat in front of the one she was in, strung them up on that pole and carried them all the way down the Ohio. That was what she looked at, the scalps of her family. I guess as a reminder, standing there in the stern of the canoe. So they sailed down the river down to Ohio. When they arrived at a Seneca village there, Seneca Indian town at the mouth of a small river, she met a man named Sheninji, and she said these two squaws told her that she would go and live with him. And so that is how she was kind of adopted in. And she talks about this adoption ceremony. The Native American women gathered around her in the village down in Ohio when she was taken down there, and they were screaming at a great rate. And she said it kind of was weird, and then they started getting happy and welcoming her to take the spot of a son that they had lost in battle. And then they embraced her and kissed her and welcomed her and gave her a name, Two Voices Falling. So she was kind of adopted into the tribe. And that's kind of how that occurred. So she was with them, with Native Americans down in Ohio. She quickly learned the native language. She was forbidden to speak English. She said, though, that these Native Americans treated her with the utmost kindness. Her Seneca name was Decawamis, meaning Two Voices Falling. She lived with them a few years and was told, it's time to go live with Sheninji, and they were married. She grew to love him. She said he was very gentle and kind to her. He was ill. Mary became very ill, but her health was restored as soon as he had returned from a battle. He had been away. He was a noble man, large in stature, elegant in appearance, generous in conduct, courageous in war, a friend in peace, and a great lover of justice. Later, she had a son to him, and she named him Thomas for her lamented father. After 4 years living with the Native Americans, Her anxiety to leave subsided. She said, with them was my home, my family and friends to whom I was warmly attached. In consideration of the favors, affection, and friendship which they had uniformly treated me at the time of my adoption. She also said that she preferred Native American lives as opposed to those of the white. And with her 9-month-old on her back, she walked from Ohio to New York. Walked there, and her husband was to join her there, but he never did. And she learned that he had died of sickness. So she was reunited then with her Native American sisters. I think it might have been like summer quarters and winter quarters, something like that. She was reunited with them. She said the affection they had towards her was genuine, and she loved them like she would have loved her own sister had she had one. And here's another depiction by Griffin. This is about her adoption. So she's stripped of all her colonial garb, and she is dressed in Indian fashion. They gather around her, and they welcome her. They give her a special name, and she is welcomed and treated affectionately by the people in her tribe. Griffin. So if you're into prints, you can lay down about $500 probably for a nicely framed print to adorn your Mary Jemison room. But just beautiful. I think it's sweet, and I've met him. Now, this is the monument of her in Castile, New York. So when she goes up to New York, she's reunited there. Now, while she was in New York, Dutchmen wanted to take her to Fort Niagara to collect a bounty for her return. They wanted to make money off of her, so if they could get her to come back, then they could get profit. And she thought about it. She hid, though, to avoid him. It's interesting when you read about this. She wanted to avoid capture and hid until he left the area. She married another chief named Hioka II when Thomas was 3 or 4. He was also called Gardo. She had 4 daughters and 2 sons to him, and named many of them after her relatives. She said life was peaceful following the French and Indian War. We lived 12 years in peace till the Revolution. And she says this, no one can live more happily than the Indians in times of peace. Their lives were a continual round of pleasure. Their wants were few. They wanted to remain neutral during the Revolution, sign a treaty, not take up arms on either side. But after a few years, they were bribed by the British, and some Native Americans decided to fight with the British. They were given a suit of clothes, scalping knife, gun, tomahawk powder, piece of gold, and promised a bounty for every scalp that was brought in to the British. Fortunately, Mary's village was isolated from most of the conflict, so there was little fighting that she was involved in during the time. After the Revolution, she was again offered her liberty. This time, her son Thomas encouraged her to go. Thomas said he would go too and help her with the other children on the journey. But the chiefs refused to let him go. And she said, I can't go without him. I can't leave my kids. And so because he couldn't go, he was needed. So she just thought this just isn't going to work. So they decided to stay, much to their delight. And she was given a large tract of land where she would live unmolested and remain there for the duration of her life. Mary talks about the Native American women like this. I was very fortunate in falling into their hands, for they were kind, good-natured women, peaceable and mild in their dispositions, temperate and decent in their habits, and very tender and gentle towards me. I had great reason to respect them. Mary mentions ardent spirits corrupted their lives. You know what we mean by ardent spirits? Alcohol. I had a toxic science person on one of my tours. She said there's possibly an enzyme some Native Americans don't have, that they can't process their alcohol well. They used to hide the guns, and one person would stay sober and watch the guns because things would get out of hand and crazy. And they were given like a barrel of rum. So they were encouraged to get them intoxicated. So there's more to the story, So she said they were corrupted by alcohol, corrupted her life. This brought more sorrow. Her sons quarreled while they drank. Anybody ever hear of someone quarreling while they're drinking? And one son killed another. And then that same son was killed by another. And it was killing her to see her sons fighting like this. Her sorrow during this time was much, she said, for she loved them all the same. Her husband, Hayokatu, died in 1811. Mary Jemison died 1833. She was about 90. That's some high life expectancy back then. She was given, this says, she was given Christian rights in New York before she died. Her family disputes that. They said Seaver put that in. She absolutely did not go back to Christian teachings. She was in the Native American spirituality to her dying day, is what they said. So she is memorialized 2 places. There's the New York Monument. That's this one. Have any of you been to Castile, New York to see this one? Okay. It's pretty nice.
Where in New York?
Castile, New York, Letchworth State Park.
Which is
Castile. Oh, just straight on up there from Potter County. Keep on going.
close to Corning, close to
I don't know. I'm thinking it's just above Potter County, about an hour.
okay.
Like maybe
Okay.
Castile, New York is the name, Letchworth State Park, and there are waterfalls there. I'll give you another reason to go there. So, so we had a big celebration in 2008 for the 250th. I give tours at the National Apple Harvest Festival, and I do Underground Railroad one day, Mary Jemison the other day, and I'm walking through the fairgrounds. I'm thinking, how many years ago was this? And I was like, 249 years. My gosh, next year's 250. We got to do something. So we celebrated a kidnapping. That's what I do. And the committee was great. We had wonderful people pulled it in. So Letchworth, you go there, you can see these waterfalls. It sounds beautiful when you're looking at her cabin. Here's again, this is the monument up in New York.
Is her cabin still there?
Yeah, it says that she built it. There it is. It was there a few years ago when I was there. It is a state park, Letchworth State Park. And here is 1968. And this is a slide from the Sando family vacation. And there's little Debbie wondering why my dad drags us around to these historical places. But it's stuck. Mike and Melissa could care less about Mary Jemison, but I'm still talking about her. Still pretty amazing. And I went up a road trip with a girlfriend. And so take the Mary Jemison journey. So these are some slides from the celebration that we had. We advertised it. Everything was free. We wrote grants. We put our own money into the kitty. I'm walking through there this day, and I heard people say, I hear they're going to do it every year. And I'm going, yeah, like fun we are. And I wrote grants to try to recoup some of the money that we put in, and I didn't get funded. So sorry, it was a one and done. But it was great. We had bagpipers start the day. We wanted to reflect her Scotch-Irish heritage, and we thought that's the best way. When you hear them bagpipes coming in through the pines outside in the cold, crisp April morning, it was a spiritual moment. And the first words that were spoken were from him in Seneca language, welcoming everyone. And this is his son, Alan, and Alan Jr. They welcome people. Here's Peter or Gerald Jemison. This is the gentleman who's a curator. And we had Native American dancing. So here you can take a little gander at some of the, here, I'll bring it over. Some of the, we call this full regalia. Full regalia. And that little girl in that picture, yes, I couldn't take my eyes off her. I just thought she was so precious. Like, this one will be mine. I'll just take this little girl home with me. It was really a fun day. And we had lectures. We kind of blew out the plumbing in the church. We had to make announcements about flushing because the toilets could not accommodate all the people. It was 7 people along the wall, standing room only. He brought the wampum belt that the Jemison family still owns. We had stuff for kids. We had Native American dancing and storytelling. And Anne Griffith depicted Mary Jemison. Here, she's out on the rock talking with the kids. So this was a fun day. There's Tim Smith talking about the Scotch-Irish, telling that great story about the Scots who cut his hand off to claim land as he threw his wrist from the boat. It's a great story. You've heard it. Isn't it great? Red Hand of Ulster. If you want to look it up, Red Hand of Ulster. Look it up. Tom Jolin, we had cloggers. We had happy kids and more dancing, Native Americans dancing. So we just wanted to reflect all the heritage of Mary Jemison's life. There's a local scout group. There she is again, that little sweet little girl. There she is again. No, she's not on that one. Go past that one. I'm not on that one. Okay, we had vendors from Letchworth come down. They were handing out brochures, welcoming everybody to come up and see what they have to offer. We had jewelry to buy. We had living historians. So it was quite a day. Turtle Schwartz, husband is Roger Schwartz. The geeks on the committee went on a field trip before the actual event. We wanted to see where her family was murdered. And we took a field trip there. And we went to Fort McCord. This is a place you all can go. And it's right down that Edenville Road to Fort McCord. And if you see this French and Indian War replica, you're not going to feel very safe in it. I'll show you a picture. And on that monument, it says Lieutenant Jemison. We're not sure who this is. I just saw an 1830 census record, and there was a David Jemison on it. And I'm like, was it Thomas's brother? Did he survive? Did someone else immigrate here with that same last name? And here is the plaque in the flower bed at Gilbert Road. It says, in this mountain gorge, the child Mary Jemison, later the White Squaw, rested with her captors on their way from Marsh Creek up to the Ohio country, April 5th, 1758. Her parents were tomahawked near this spot, erected by Fort McCord Chapter, Pennsylvania Alpine Club, September 25th, 1926. Here's Fort McCord. Do you feel safe? When I was in there, I was like, not a whole lot of protection. It's a replica. But Fort Loudon, this is Fort Loudon, I think. Fort McCord no longer stands. So one end note that I want to end on, I've been doing some other research lately, and I wanted to just share with you what I'm working on. The Dickinson Law School in Carlisle has digitalized all of the Carlisle Indian School records. And you can sit in your pajamas and do research at home and find out about these outings. And this is what captured my imagination, outings. So Barb Landis works at Cumberland County Historical Society. She knew I was a Quaker. I wrote and talked about the Quakers a lot. And she called me in a few years ago and said, can you help me? These Native American children at the Carlisle Indian School, when they were not in school, went on outings. And they were placed all over the place. And all those records are digitalized. Well, guess what I found as we were looking at those records of Adams County children and who the families were that they were with? And I found 14 Jemisons from Seneca tribe in New York. 2 of them, Lucy and I forget the other girl's name. 2 of these Jemison children were within 10 miles of where she was captured 150 years before they were here. Did they know that this is where Mary Jemison was captured from. One stayed on the Gilliland farm, which was on the Table Rock Road between Biglerville and Gettysburg. And the other was Arthur Greist, Butler Township near Guernsey in the Biglerville area. So 14 Jemison children attended Carlisle Indian School. 2 of them were on outings within 10 miles of where Mary Jemison had been captured in 1758. And this was around 1900, late 1800s, very early 1900s.
So did they have last names of Jemison?
Yeah, they did. And I saw them right away, and I'm like, whoa, I know who they are. And then I started, like, maybe, Deb, maybe you're wrong. And then I had to prove that I'm right. So I started looking at the records. Who is their daddy? Oh, and this helped tremendously. I met this geeky guy in New York, or he came down here to our celebration, and he had a family tree of Mary Jemison's children. So I know her children's names. So I started looking at the students that were there in 1900 and who were their parents in the census and who were their parents. And then the names, Jesse. And I was like, ding, 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 ding. So it wasn't this Jesse, but it was another generation named after that. So I was like, okay, I'm right. I'm right. This is for real.
How was it that they had the last name?
Seaver did it in 1833, kind of changed her name in 1830s. Their spelling were mostly Jamison, Jamison instead of Jemison.
But why would they have had Seneca names?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
They carried her name. She was a matriarch in the Seneca Nation. Her name was Mary Jemison. And her grandchildren are all of that name. They didn't take a last name of their Native American father. They have her last name. So I thought, wow, that's really something. And I couldn't wait to tell the one property owner that I knew. It's like Mary Jemison's descendants were on outings right here in Adams County, the same county where she was captured from. So the never-ending story. Okay, so that is Mary Jemison's story. Complex, and I challenge you to read her book. I challenge you to take a road trip. Start your day in New Buchanan Valley and take a picture of her monument here, and then drive up to New York. And I always wonder, like, if you were on a satellite, are they looking at each other? Is the one, are they facing each other? I don't know. But I kind of envision that they are. The Mary Jemison journey, I've been there a couple of times. Now, there was also another raid a week after the Jemison family had their fate. Richard and Catherine Bard near Virginia Mills. Anybody know where Mount Hope Road is? Near the Gettysburg National Golf Club? Mount Hope Road. It's up near Kepler, up in that area. Where Kepler's? Kepner, yes. Yes, up in that area, the Bards. And Richard Bard, so the ordeal was pretty much the same as the Jemison family. A dawn raid, they were surprised in the morning. They ran in and, I hate to tell this part. The Bards had a small infant. They picked up that child, slammed it against a tree, and killed it right in front of them. And then they took the mom and dad, and they painted the dad's half face red and half black, and they were trying to determine whether they were going to spare him or not, and he gets away. So Richard Bard, the father, the dad, the husband, could see that the Native Americans were kind of chatting with his wife and playing with her undergarments, by the fire one night. So he said to her, you just keep doing that, and I'm going to slip away. And if they notice I'm missing, tell them I went to the spring for water, but I'm just going to keep going. And I'm going to get you back, okay? That's the plan. That's what he did. He hid in a wooden log, and they never found him. And then he trailed them and chased them. And at one time, his feet were all cut up. He had no shoes. He said he was crawling on his hands and knees. And he said that he ate, to live, a snake. And I'm thinking, while you're down there, you found something else crawling around to help you live. And he taught and wrote an incredible poem about the entire ordeal. And he says that snakes make a delicious meal if you're hungry enough. So an incredible poem, and the way he uses his words is just incredible. So the French and Indian War, it's,
His wife back?
he did, he did. They spared, he got them back. He negotiated and bought her, like somehow got money, found money, gave them money, got her back, and they moved back down to Franklin County. They're not in Adams County, they're in Franklin County. And one of the Native Americans that she was living with came to visit them. And while he was here, he got into a fight in a bar and almost got killed. And she restored him back to health. And then he returned to his village and they killed him for returning to the white world. So, many cultures here, this was manifest destiny, you know, the settlers coming here, conquering the territory. But we don't think of this as the frontier. This was the frontier. And they were squatters. We can't find deed to their home. They just went into a house that was vacated by another family. Somebody tried to live there and like, oh, I'm not doing this here, not with what's going on. And it wasn't a comfortable time to be a settler here. So I just think an interesting story. Anybody have any questions?
Question.
I think you said, if my memory's right, that the family was killed near Edenville, but that Mary and another boy,
Right.
a brother,
There was another family with them in their house.
is there any information about what happened?
No,
to him?
I don't know who that would be. I don't know. But there was, the History Channel did a video on captives, and Mary Jemison's story is in it. I've never seen it, but I've been told that. There's a Captives, I think is the name of it. It's about French and Indian War captives. She's one of the few. Many went back. Colonel Bouquet rounded them up, took these captives to Philadelphia to a port. There's a story that when they were reuniting these captives with their families, there was a child that couldn't find their family and the family couldn't find the child. So the mother started singing a lullaby and the child recognized it and said, "You're my mom. I remember that." So it was an incredible time and she just didn't want to come back without her children. I was in a 1972 Thunderbird going down to Disneyland, and I remember the song on the radio by Cher was Half Breed, and I was singing along. We don't try not to say that word anymore, but it was a hit song in my lifetime. So if you can't understand the resistance she felt, I mean, that kind of tells me what's been going on. Sir?
Yes. The plaques that was placed where her family was tomahawked. Any idea how they understood the dates or came to the conclusion other than the original date from the newspaper?
Yeah, they got the date right.
Right, but I guess I was thinking that I guess it's not really that far, is it?
No, well,
if I'm walking, it might take me a while.
There was a father at the St. Ignatius Loyola Church, Father Whalen, and he wrote this fictional account. Sometimes I get questions about Mary Jemison's boyfriend, and I'm like, no, that was Father Whalen. That was fiction. He didn't know that she had a boyfriend. He made that all up. So, but she was highly celebrated. When was the book published? Maybe 19.
Yeah, I guess I'm always curious about something like that that says, we know this is the spot. And other than somebody had documented it.
Yeah, I mean, the houses that were there today weren't there then.
Right.
How did they know? I don't know.
Right.
We need to find somebody from the
General area.
1926 Alpine Club, somewhere they have
Right.
Alpine Club. I don't know if they were skiers
Maybe there's a 2-year-old who was there at the time and they're still here now.
or someone may have seen them. I don't know. Yeah.
You may have mentioned it, but she left Pennsylvania to go to New York.
She went from Pennsylvania to Ohio. She was taken to Ohio and then taken to, she walked from Ohio to New York.
Why did she go to New York?
I think summer quarters and winter quarters is what I think. That they moved.
But she left her husband here.
Oh, no, yeah, they were separated. So she was, maybe he was on some hunting expedition or some, yeah, so she was coming up and he was to join her, but he never did. And she found out he had been killed.